Evening. Welcome to the June 21st committee meeting of the Fairfield RTM. I'd like to ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. The first on our agenda is to hear from Mr. Murray, the tax assessor, for the assessor's report on the tax relief for the elderly and disabled homeowners. Are you here, Ross? Is Mr. Murray here? I think he's not tuned in yet, so maybe we'll move that to a little later in the meeting. Our next item is the ethics reappointments, and we didn't schedule any presenters because all three of the people being reappointed were very recently before the RTM. So if anyone would like to tell me now or email me, if you'd like to hear from someone again, we can ask them to attend on Monday. But if not, we thought that we've all heard from them recently enough. So, next item is the NAA and CDBG programs from Mr. Barnhart. I know you are on, Mark.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. Mark Barnhart, Director of Community Economic Development. I'll be presenting two items for you this evening. The first is the town's participation in the Neighborhood Assistance Act program. This is a state program administered by the Department of Revenue Services, which allows corporations that make charitable contributions to programs run by municipal agencies or nonprofit organizations to qualify for a tax credit against their corporate tax liabilities. The town's responsibility in administering the program is to solicit applications from eligible municipal agencies and nonprofit agencies and to hold a public hearing to approve those program applications locally and then submit them to the Department of Revenue Services by the July 1st deadline. The town also needs to designate a municipal liaison for the program, which typically has been through my office. We did solicit applications from municipal agencies and nonprofit groups, as we have in the last many years. We received 9 applications from 6 agencies. A summary of that, those applications received has been included in your packet, hopefully. And we did have our public hearing today. So the matter is now before you. There are no town monies involved in this program. It's strictly a tax credit offered by the state, which is capped, I believe, at $5 million statewide. Happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Yeah, are there any questions for Mark on this item? Okay, I don't think so. So if you don't mind going on to the next one, the CDBG.
Sure, let me grab that folder out. Okay. So again, I'm here to present our annual allocation plan under the Community Development Block Grant Program. The town is a recipient of federal funds through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The town is an entitlement community, meaning by virtue of its population size, we receive an allocation directly from the federal government, depending on their budget, instead of a competitive application through the state of Connecticut. We participated in this program, I believe, since its inception back in the 1970s. We do need to ensure that the programs that we fund are eligible to receive federal dollars and meet a national objective, which in our case most often means that they're benefiting persons or areas of low to moderate income. For the most part, we have some degree of discretion in terms of how we allocate those dollars in accordance with our 5-year consolidated plan. but we are limited to providing not more than 50% of the allocation towards public service activities and 20% to cover our administrative costs to run the program. And we typically allocate the maximum under both of those categories, and the balance would go towards affordable housing and public facilities and non-housing community development needs. Most of these recipients, particularly under the public service category, should be familiar to them, to all of you. Many of them have received funding from us in the past. There are some new applications. We did receive an application this year from the Kennedy Center. Again, a summary of this program is included in your packet, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Barnhart? Representative Gerber.
Hey, Mark. How are you?
Good.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. Yeah, I had a couple of questions. One is, did anyone apply and not get funded, that's my first question. Second question would be, did everyone sort of get what they applied for, or did you have to scale back? And if you scale back the request, like, what's the criteria for doing that? And I have another question after that.
Okay, I'll start with the second one first. You know, we typically are oversubscribed in terms of the amount of funds requested versus what we can allocate under this program from especially those agencies applying under the public service category. So we have had to provide funding less than what was requested. And typically we try to do that more or less across the board, although consistent with what we've allocated in the past in accordance with our annual allocation plan and our 5-year consolidated plan. There are some, I believe, I'm going to look at my notes here, apologize, but I recall at least one organization that did apply that we didn't recommend funding for. Two, actually. One is the United Way of Coastal Fairfield County, and the second would be Supportive Housing Works, both of which were looking for funding that was more towards a regional initiative, didn't fit squarely within the needs that we identified in our 5-year plan. They might have been more appropriate, especially in the case of the United Way of Coastal Fairfield County under the funding provided through the CARES Act, but not really in accordance with our 5-year planning objectives. I should disclose for the record that I do serve as a member of the board of directors of the United Way of Coastal Fairfield County. So I did want to make that known to all of you, but we're not recommending funding for that program at this time.
Okay, thanks. And my last question was, and I could be totally off base. My memory isn't what it used to be, but I could have sworn a couple years ago, Operation Hope sort of decided to sort of stop housing. Or am I thinking of the wrong organization? I thought that they felt there was no longer a need in Fairfield to provide housing, and is this sort of a reversal of that? And if you could just explain what's going on here, and whether this is housing within the structures that they used to use, or is this putting people up in other housing? Or yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I can clarify that. The Operation Hope is no longer in the direct business of providing emergency housing. They used to operate a shelter at 50 Nichols Street, and they're not doing that. But what they are doing is providing permanent supportive housing with wraparound services to keep people permanently housed. And this is continuation of funding that we provided last years, provide for property management support services to keep folks housed within our community. So it's not for emergency housing like a temporary shelter, but rather a more permanent arrangement with support services in place to ensure that they remain housed in the long term.
Is that something that they were doing all along and continuing to do? Okay, and so
Yeah.
this wasn't like as a result of like COVID or anything like that?
Yeah, they've moved away,
you
know, in fact, a lot of the housing providers have moved away from providing temporary emergency housing and more towards providing housing for the long haul, so long as, you know, folks continue to meet and honor their obligations to remain housed.
Thanks very much, Mark.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions, any other questions from Mr. Barnhart? Representative Vergara.
Hi, thank you. Jill Vergara for District 7. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, Mark. So I had a question about, you said that you mentioned that the Kennedy Center was one of the new recipients. Were there any other new recipients?
Not that I recall. I believe the Kennedy Center was the only one that was new to us this year.
Okay.
We have provided funding to the Kennedy Center or some of their programs in the past, but this is for public service activity as opposed to providing funding to maintain their housing facility in town.
Okay. And I really appreciate your disclosure that you are affiliated or on the board of United Way.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned that they aren't going to be a recipient of this, but do you know if any decision makers were on the boards or were directors in any way for any of these organizations that are receiving the funding?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. And how do we select the recipients for this?
Well, we generally notify all past and past recipients, as well as other organizations that have expressed interest in the program through direct communication, as well as a public announcement that we're soliciting applications into the program. We then do hold a public hearing to, again, solicit information from the public at large and from agencies as to what we see as community development housing needs in our community. We then look at the applications and compare those to the goals and objectives outlined in our 5-year plan to ensure and to make sure that those activities are eligible for receipt of federal dollars should they be approved. We also need to ensure that they meet one or more of the 3 national objectives. So we do that vetting. We'll then make an initial recommendation to the first select woman, or at least discuss with the first select woman our proposed allocation plan that gets presented to the Board of Selectmen and then to this body for your final review and approval.
And when you say we, is that that's your office?
Yes, it's me and Sonia Hine, who is the grants coordinator.
Okay. Thanks so much, Mark.
Representative Gale.
Hi, sorry. Hi, Mark.
There you are.
Gale here from District 6. I'm just remembering that several years ago, for a couple of years in a row, there were grants for sidewalk repair in District 6. And I'm just wondering if that is continuing and what is the status?
So we do have, we are proposing for your consideration funding for street and sidewalk improvements. I don't believe we designated an area. Typically, we'll meet with Public Works and compare eligible census tracts to their list of priority project. And we've gone back and forth between doing street and road improvements versus sidewalk improvements. So hopefully if there are areas in your district or in any of your districts that are in need of work that has been highlighted or made known to the Public Works Department, they can evaluate based on their criteria. But what we look at is just to ensure that it does meet the national objective, that it is an eligible census tract for community development block grant dollar investment.
And just one more question on that. And so that is sort of contingent on the per capita income level of that neighborhood or that area?
It's based on, we don't really have any low moderate income census tracts that meet the technical definition under HUD, which means that more than 50% of the population within that census tract are persons of low moderate income. But for many communities across the country, they establish what's known as exception criteria, and they HUD will develop a percentage below which, or actually above which, that census tract or block group would qualify. So I'm going from memory, but my recollection is it's around 25%. And if a census tract has more than 25% of its population classified as persons of low moderate income, then it does meet the test or the criteria for HUD or CDBG investment.
Okay, and that's why I recall my district having benefited from it in the past. And since we don't benefit from many things in this town, that's at least one thing that, I really don't want to lose for our area. And I just want to, I guess I want for the future to know if there is a way to, for the community to have some input on this, or on the choice for what might receive those funds.
I would say that, we do have to have several public hearings, 2 public hearings to be exact, each before we submit a plan for your consideration and ultimately to HUD. And the purpose of those public hearings, and sometimes we do hear from the public that say, hey, there's a particular issue or need or priority that we have, we'd like to take a look at. But that's really the overall intent. So if there are, and there have been occasions in the past where we've had members of the public attend and say, I really think you should look at making some sidewalk improvements in my particular neighborhood. So we would welcome that.
Okay.
And then alternatively, I would say, if there's an area that needs work, that those priorities should be made known, or issues should be made known to Public Works. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your help.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Barnhart? Okay, I think we're all set. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your meeting.
You too. Take care. Next item is for item 7, the microgrid funding. Mr. Norton?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, how are you?
Okay, good. Good evening, everyone. This is for additional funding to for the microgrid project to refurbish some equipment, purchase additional construction materials that weren't purchased originally, because this project was shut down first for the hardening project, because they didn't want it completed before the plant was protected by the hardening. And secondly, that's been delayed even further because the hardening project's been delayed by the historical contaminated soils that they ran into. So the hardening projects went from a 9-month project to probably an 18-month project. So that's the delay. These are for costs associated with restarting this project and completing it, hopefully.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Norton? Representative Bateson.
Yeah, how you doing? Ed Bateson, District 1. Quick thing, I saw in the minutes or whatever that discussed this, that the WPCA didn't want to pay for portions of the animal control facility and other things. Is that included in this estimate?
It's not included, but may be covered by the additional contingency if that's not needed. If not, those facilities may need to look at purchasing boxes that weren't included because of the solar panels that weren't taken into account when this project was first designed.
Okay, so the WPCA is saying their philosophy is, since that's not part of the that's not part of the microgrid project or on them, they're not paying for that. So are we expecting to see another appropriation for that, or you're saying it's covered in the contingency portion?
Well, we're hoping that it may be. I mean, if we don't have to utilize all of these funds and the contingency still available, we may utilize that for the boxes. There'll be boxes on the conservation facility, the animal shelter, and the fire academy.
Okay, can we, the WPCA is going to pay this out of their reserve fund, right?
Correct.
Okay, I haven't seen lately I'm not going to say this, how do I say this? A dedication of funds for the reserve fund for the WPCA. I know we have several $1 million in there. I know the WPCA, I think you guys just did something with Wright Pierce to get the ball rolling on engineering for the water treatment plant. I think that was like 4.2 million. I'm starting to see these appropriations that the WPCA is going to pay for some of this stuff out of the reserve fund. I think it's about time we had somebody, or Jared Schmidt and you sat down and said, okay, here's, I think we did this in the capital planning summit, but maybe just visit what your capital outlays are, what you expect to come out of the reserve fund, how your increased rates are going to flow into that. I think I've seen this a year ago, but I don't think we've done it lately. I'd like to see that exercise redone so that we can see where we are going forward.
Yes, there is a waterfall plan in place for all of the WPCA projects, and you were right that part of that is the wastewater treatment facility upgrade, and Wright Pierce design is the 4.7 million. There are several different areas or ways that we're looking at funding that. One of the major ways of funding that would be through the state revolving fund, where you would receive 80-20 money, 80% loan over 20 years at 2%, and the 20% would be grant. So that's what makes that so attractive to go ahead and fund that through that state revolving fund.
Okay, for Monday, can we get the balance in the reserve fund, and how should I say, what's been encumbered on there, or what you plan to use that for?
Sure, I can speak with Jared and Caitlin. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from Mr. Norton? Okay, I don't see any. So thank you very much, Mr. Norton.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night, and I'll see you next Monday.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Next up is the Gould Manor remediation and Mr. Bremer. Are you there, Tom? I think there's a town hall mic open. Is that true, Dave? I don't know where Mr. Bremer is. I don't know if we have him either. Tom, are you there? Okay, so we'll hold off on that and move on to the next item, which is the Cherry Street road abandonment, which we heard a little bit about a year or two ago. So we'll like to hear from Scott Johnston. Are you here, Mr. Johnston?
Yes, I am. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. So my name is Scott Johnston, and I'm the owner of Fairfield Transmission, which is located at 2196 Kings Highway. And speaking behalf on not only myself, but the owners of the neighboring business, which is Circle Collision, located at 2230 Kings Highway. And we're requesting the abandonment of Cherry Street. I did deliver a package with some pictures and some points of concern to the members in the 6th and 7th district, since it's local. And in that packet, it had a letter that I had sent to Jim Wynn on March 16th, basically depicting this request and some of the points. Essentially, in 1980, the Board of Selectmen for the town of Fairfield unanimously approved the abandonment of 118 feet of Cherry Street. And that was kind of the rear section of Cherry Street. Essentially, Cherry Street runs from Kings Highway to Kings Highway cutoff. And this part that they abandoned is now basically the parking lot of Bed Bath & Beyond. So the piece we're talking about here is the front piece that runs between Fairfield Transmission and Circle Collision from Kings Highway, and it just dead ends into nothing. The street has never been developed and basically serves no purpose to the town or any of its capacity. Its current state continues to deteriorate and remains more of a liability to the town than anything else. The requested abandonment would allow us to, one, clean it up and maintain it, and definitely enhance and enable the use of parking for the respective properties. Additionally, it would greatly enhance the curb appeal and street view and allow us to maintain not only the piece itself, but to maintain, equally important, the drainage easement that exists, that the town of Fairfield has never maintained at all. In fact, this past year, I spent considerable amount of resource and money to not only dig it out, but to uncover the easement and basically keep it open. And we can already see brush beginning to pile up on it and debris collecting and whatnot. So it's basically been just a deteriorating piece that's just getting worse and worse. Also, it would generate additional tax revenue for the town of Fairfield. And it should be noted that historically, the precedent has been set by the town for these particular paper streets, like Cherry Street and Willow Street, to just to name a few in the area. They have been abandoned in such situations where they really can't be developed and they serve no purpose. And a couple of major points that exist there that I did outline and got to some of the members. The major concerns with the condition of this piece as it sits now is it collects about 2 to 3 inches of standing water every single time it rains. And it basically renders this little strip of property unusable for anything, and including parking, which is really what it's best, laid out for. And in the winter months, it becomes solid ice. And actually this year, it's become both a liability and a safety concern. I had a customer and an employee slip. So it's something that, it really needs to be, maintained and properly graded and covered with gravel or whatever the case is, paved, or there's a lot of things we can do to it. It continues to sink and collapse, and it's now beginning to erode my pavement. And so it creates an uneven driving surface, and there's potholes that I'm constantly cleaning up, big hunks of concrete and whatnot. And it's the curb appeal and street view is just getting worse. I don't know if everyone's driven by it, but I invite everyone to, because it's just not that pretty to look at all. And it's just become a catch-all for all the debris and brush. And lastly, it creates total confusion between the two businesses, because it's really no clear boundary between the two at all. And some of the points that, if we can approve this abandonment, it'll provide both the businesses with the opportunity to clean it up, enhance it, and use it for much needed parking, eliminate the safety hazards and liability to the town. It will allow us to repair and maintain that's basically been non-existent thus far, and that includes maintaining this drainage easement. It'll provide a natural and clear boundary between the two businesses, and again, it will provide tax revenue for the town. It basically turns a liability and eyesore into tax revenue. And essentially, anytime you can trade a liability for an asset, it kind of makes sense. I did deliver a number of pictures, I think 10 to be exact, that shows exactly the strip of land and some of the issues with the water and buildup of everything. And I invite anyone that's got any questions to come by and look at it. I'm happy to show it to them, and happy to take any questions regarding it.
Thank you very much. And I should mention that I appreciate that you dropped off those packets. The property is in District 6 and 7, but I will also upload those packets to our website so that the rest of the RTM and the public can take a look at them as well. Mr. Bateson?
Yeah, thanks. Ed Bateson, District 1. Scott, thanks for jumping on the call and walking us through this. Have you talked to planning and zoning? I assume that when we abandon this and give it to you, have you discussed curb cuts and how you're going to access your property now? I mean, I know that the parking down there, the way you guys operate, are you planning on cleaning it up and having specific curb cuts for each property?
There'll be no different curb cuts than what I have talked to planning and zoning on it. My property for sure, it would be used exactly. The curb cut would remain exactly the same as you pull into the first driveway, say coming from the traffic circle down where we're on the left. You take a left into it, and then it would the use of the property would remain basically what I'm trying to do with it now is just parking, sequential parking down there. So there'd be no reason for any additional curb cut whatsoever.
Okay, and how do you envision this happening if we abandon it? You two property owners, you're going to split it down the middle, and you're each going to get it?
Right down the middle. It's the property is essentially 50 feet wide, so Circo would get 25 feet, and we get 25 feet.
Okay, is there anything running underneath that? Do we have a sanitary sewer, anything under it?
There is a storm sewer, the drainage easement I was talking about. That is basically it's a storm sewer that I actually uncovered the easement, the manhole for it because it was just buried under years and years and years of things. But that runs all the way to Kings Highway cutoff. So it runs under Bed Bath & Beyond. And then there's a manhole at the back of my property, and it runs out to the storm sewer that's right on the Kings Highway Road there. And,
okay. And I
would allow access to that.
And I assume if we do this abandonment, you're going to give us an easement for that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Are there any other questions for Mr. Johnston? Representative Georgiadis and then Representative Steele.
Hi, Drew Georgiadis, District 9. One question I have, I know that area well, and all of the buildings around you and your neighbor's property have a higher, just a higher level, 4 or 5 stories. Do you know if the easement, even if it's split between you, if the property was ever combined, would you go up to that 4 or 5 stories, the same as the Westie storage? Does it change your zoning restrictions because the size of the property is then larger?
First of all, I think the size of Circle Collision's property is not large enough to change any type of zoning.
But when Cherry Street is gone and the 2 properties can be combined,
right?
It could potentially, the 2 combined without that barrier between them, then it could go to the height of the Westie storage.
I don't know that there's still enough property, even with that easement and with Circles. I don't think there is enough because their property is considerably smaller than mine. And I'm not even close. I don't think we would even get there. Number one. Number two, I have no intention of anything combining anything with Circle Collision. This would actually truly enable more of a boundary between us. And they operate on their end, and we operate on mine. I'm not sure if anyone's, if you're familiar with it, you see how I kind of keep the front of my building and the curb appeal with the gardens and the flowers, and it's difficult next to a body shop because a body shop can be, it's a different animal. They're both industrial, but I put a lot of attention to detail to keeping the front of it as clean as I can.
I'm not questioning you. I'm just questioning down long term. Once Cherry Street's eliminated, the 2 properties can be combined. and potentially have a very, you know, it's a residential area around you, across the street, and you know, the Westie storage is set back, and so, but it's still extremely tall. So I know your properties might not be able to go further back, so setback. But again, the height restriction, I'd like to find out more about that before I make my decision. So thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Steele.
Hi, Jeff Steele, District 2. I just have just for clarification, how long is the piece that is that part of the road that you're looking to have abandoned again?
It is 170 some odd feet.
Okay. And it's deteriorating. Is it anyone's responsibility right now to keep it up? And is there a reason it hasn't been addressed?
It's really it's kind of one of those things that kind of has fallen. It's a town property, and it's a paper street, so technically it'd be the town's responsibility. But it's, you know, this has been something that, you know, when my dad was active in this business and project, I mean, he looked into it, and he never went through with, you know, all the A2 surveys, and it's, you know, it's been a cost just getting to this point. I don't know the answer, to be honest with you. If you know, I as far as I know, there's nobody's responsibility. It kind of falls through the cracks because it's a paper street. There's no reason for them to maintain it.
Okay, so maintenance or building department or anything has not been contacted at any point?
Oh, they've been contacted numerous times, but nothing has ever gotten done. You know, if floods in the area, they come out and pump out the sewer on one end, but no, there's nobody that maintains that.
Okay. Thanks.
Representative Vergara.
Thanks, Jill Vergara, District 7. Thank you so much for dropping that packet off. It was really helpful to get the pictures. So thank you for that. And thank you for offering to talk to me personally and answer any of my questions. I just wanted to do it publicly, just so it would help other representatives, maybe if they have this similar questions, or also members of the public if they wanted to be privy to the conversations. I did drive along the street, and I wasn't aware, I didn't realize that it had stopped at a certain point, the paper street that you're wanting to abandon, and that a portion of it had already been abandoned. So I drove along the entire length of it and got all the way to the back of the property. There was still a good amount of footage from where I was to the fence line. So I just wanted to see if you could give me an idea of where in the property the paper street begins. Because when I was there, I saw two pack rat, I don't know what to call them, two pack rats and two boats and several other things stored there, and a lot of overgrowth.
So sure. So the street that the piece that we're talking about runs from the front edge of my property, which is Kings Highway East, to that back fence. The part that was abandoned, that essentially that paper street went from the Kings Highway through that back fence, through Bed Bath & Beyond's parking lot, up to Kings Highway cutoff. So that's the section that was already abandoned.
Okay.
And so it's just that front section that just goes along my property to the back fence, and it's dead ends. That's the section we're talking about right now.
Okay, so it was one pack rat in one of the pictures that you gave to us.
Yes.
That is, and if you were to be given control of this street, would you be keeping that pack rat there, or would you be eliminating it?
I would probably be eliminating it, and just consolidating, you know, stuff. I have more room now in my business. We're just running out of parking, and I'd like to clean that area up.
Okay, that would be great. If there were a commitment to clean up the area, I think that would be helpful for all of the neighbors.
Sure, absolutely. That's my goal as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Representative Havey?
Hi, Representative Lisa Havey, District 6. I did have an opportunity to meet with Scott and discuss his concerns. Full disclosure, I live right across the street from the paper street and these two businesses. And in general, I think this is probably a good idea. So I just wanted to say that. And if anybody wanted to ask me any questions, I'm happy to answer any. And I wish I had thought ahead to have the pictures ready to share, because they do tell a compelling story. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? Okay. Thank you very much for coming. I don't know if you need to come next week, but given the number of questions we had, if you're able to come to our RTM meeting next week, that might be helpful if you don't mind.
Absolutely. In the same format, I assume, correct, on WebEx?
Yes. Yep, same
I'll
WebEx. Yep.
I'll be
That's
here.
great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Madam Moderator, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I think we skipped over Gould Manor because Tom Bremer wasn't here, but I think Brenda Kupchak was going to present. Is that correct, Brenda? If that's possible, if we want to go
That's what
back.
I was just about to introduce. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So thank you. No, that's okay. Thank you, Mr. Johnston. And we have the first select woman who is presenting on Gould Manor, as Jeff is saying, in lieu of Mr. Bremer. So thanks, Brenda, for stepping in.
No problem. Thank you for, I'm sorry, I looked at the agenda before right after I left the town hall from the Board of Selectmen meeting, and I thought it was lower on the agenda, and I happened to put it on the TV, and I go, oh my God, I'm up. I apologize. Okay, so you did receive the background information on this. Obviously, this is a long-awaited project for our community, and I'm excited that we're finally moving forward. It's gone through the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, and in your backup information, we're about $275,000 for the remediation portions of the entire area. There are some real hot spots, and then there's a range, but the hot spots are really where the concentration will be. But the remediation of the entire park, where the areas of most concern, and some other lower percentages, but just above, will be remediated and cleaned. When we were looking at this project overall, we realized that there's spots along the tennis court, and the tennis court is pretty old, so we thought we should replace that, as well as the playground that's about 20 years old. And Anthony had come up with an idea of removing the far end playground and installing an outdoor workout area that a lot of other towns have installed in their communities, which I think would be a really big hit for our town, instead of having two playgrounds on the same site. So all of that in total is about $945,000, and our plan has been submitted to the Department of Public Health. They have given us a cursory approval, and we're just waiting for the paperwork to come back, in writing, that we're all set to go. And we'd like to begin, hopefully, once this passes in July, begin the work there.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on this item? Representative Vergara.
Thanks. Jill Vergara, District 7. Thanks so much, Brenda. This sounds like a great project that I really, really like the sound of the renovations. So thank you for pursuing this. I wanted to see, when was it submitted to the Department of Health?
Well, we had been doing, there was a lot of waiting on the testing and everything was slowed up. A lot of people were waiting, but COVID slowed up all these approvals and everything that was going on. And obviously the situation that happened in conservation, our conservation department regarding the state's attorney office and the arrest slowed things down because our conservation director was managing this issue. So we had to regroup and get our ducks back in a row. But we sent it up. Ty and Bond put this proposal together. We huddled up with Anthony and looked at the whole thing, and I made the decision that I wanted to do the whole project at once. So I want to say probably about 3 weeks, maybe, Jill.
Oh, okay. Because I was just curious why we did the remediation for the fill pile stuff at Gould Manor, and we waited on the historical contaminants for this long, because it's been difficult for the Little League to function without this field. So it's really been crippling for some leagues. So I was just wondering why it's taken so long for the remediation for the historical contaminants.
Well, as you remember, so the cleanup happened, and as they were testing outside of the sidewalk area, they kept hitting arsenic, 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 and they kept going and going and going. And so that process took a long time. And then I came in, the end of November, and we got hit with the pandemic in March. And so everything just, it was all hands on deck for the pandemic. So that slowed up pretty much everything, not just Gould Manor, but all of our contamination issues. As far as, the ball fields. I know that I've worked with both the American League that's impacted by this, and I've worked with the National League. And the National League has been very gracious in offering fields, so they're all set. They have use of fields for all their games, and so they're not being impacted because of the coordination between the two leagues. So that's actually a positive thing. And I'm meeting with representatives from the American League this week to talk about having them be involved as we move forward, because there may be some areas that they can invest in this field if they want to do something different there, or add-ons, or if they want to make it add things to it or make it more expensive. I want to work with them to see if we could figure out a plan of action together, because I know they're really interested in upgrading fields across the town.
Yeah, it's a really highly utilized field, and it would be great to just make it a showcase of just a beautiful field. So I'm really excited about this whole plan. I also wanted to see, I never really understood where they thought the historical contaminants came from. Have we been able to figure out what it was? Is it all pesticides?
No. There's been some speculation that possibly some of this may have happened when they built I-95. Some of the wood or things that, that they just maybe threw into the park back that long ago. So obviously this stuff has been there for a long time.
Okay, and we're sure our land management for the fields going forward won't cause any problems in the future. I know that our schools can't use pesticides, the K through 8, but that's not applicable to fields that aren't on school grounds for outside of K to 8. So
how our fields are managed, that's really more of a question for Anthony. That's not part of this proposal. This is just to remediate, take out the contaminants and fix up the park and replace the playground, the tennis court, and add the outdoor workout area.
Yeah, I would just like to make sure that going forward, we don't run into any more problems, and we keep our fields as clean as we possibly can by, learn from our past mistakes, the sins of our fathers, and try to improve our practices.
Yeah, I don't think this is associated with any pesticides. They said this is, stuff that's been there for a very long time. Typical, like when there's pressure treated wood, on playgrounds, you'll notice there'll be arsenic found because it breaks down. I mean, probably if any of us went in our backyards, residents who use pesticides or do not would find some level of arsenic. The problem here is that we found some high levels spattered across the park, and obviously when we got these results, it's our responsibility and to put the fence up. And we know we went through that whole process. Most of you were aware that we had a fence up and people were tearing it down and going in. And so when I hired the new interim DPW director, Bucky, I had said to him, I really want a firm fence up because this is not working. So that's what he did. But once you discover this kind of contaminant, you have to do something about it, right? Is it dangerous for people just to be on it? No. But it is a contaminant that we're aware of, and it's above that level. So that's why we're not going through DEEP or EPA. We're going through the Department of Public Health, which is the requirement for this.
Okay. Yes, I totally agree. We had to remediate this, and I'm glad that the town is doing that. I'd also just want to make a note that it's important to, even though it's not being used, it's important for aesthetics to continue to maintain the fields. And I do drive by it daily and have noticed that does get overgrown. It has been for a while, and it's not something that I had complaints about, like you said, because we were in the middle of a pandemic and are in the middle of a pandemic. And I know that there are other priorities, but a lot of people live around the park, and so it is important to try to keep maintaining that even when we're not using the field. Thanks.
Thank you. Representative McDermott.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Mark McDermott, District 7. Hi, Brenda. I just have a question. I've gotten some complaints about the sidewalks down there. If you look at the corner of Crestwood and Holland Hill, that sidewalk is in disrepair. Is there any money for sidewalk improvement there, or?
So I don't know if you've gotten the same email from the gentleman or the homeowner that lives right there.
Yes.
So we actually did some stuff for him. What happened apparently was they had gone in there when they did the sidewalk remediation. They had dug up a lot near his area and it was getting all washed away, and they didn't do a really great job. And he had emailed me probably maybe around the same time as you. We sent our guys out there and he's very happy with how it looks. There was a lot of washing away. That they didn't do it right, but he didn't mention the sidewalk per se. He'd said all the dirt around it wasn't installed properly, or the sod or whatever they did there.
Yeah, if you look right on that corner though, that whole corner is like crumbled and in bad shape.
The sidewalk itself?
The curb into the sidewalk. I mean, I haven't walked on it, but I drive by it quite a bit.
Yeah, I do too. I'll take a look at it, Mark, with Bucky, and we'll see what's entailed there.
Yeah, it just doesn't look great.
No, I got you. I mean, I get you.
Okay, thank you.
I hear you. Thank you for bringing that up.
Are there any other questions or comments on this? Okay, and I think it's great for Gould Manor and the people in that area. I think they're going to love it, and the town's going to love it. So,
I think it's great for the whole town, right? I mean, this has been a long, long wait. And listen, I don't like driving by that thing looking like that any more than anyone else does. And I'm really excited that we're going to be moving forward. And by spring of next year, we're going to have a showcase park there, and even a workout area for adults. So maybe some of us can go down there and work out together one day.
Well, thanks for jumping on. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much, Karen. I'm sorry I was late.
That's okay. Thanks
all right. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay. You too.
Thank you, Brenda.
Next, we have Ross Murray, the tax assessor, who we missed early on, is on the call. And Ross, are you here? Yes, I see you.
Yes, I am.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good. So, so everybody, we received Ross's report in the packet of things for the materials for tonight. I don't know if anybody had any questions or comments on that. Representative Vergara.
Hi, I didn't know whether Ross was going to do the whole presentation. We're going right into questions.
Ross, are you able to do that? I didn't know if you.
Yeah, I can walk through. I won't read the whole thing, but I can walk through some of the highlights and just some comments that I have. So
that would be great.
This year, sure. So this year, again, we have nobody on the freeze program, and we only have 3 people left on the deferral. So the bulk of the program and the cost comes from the credit program. So the credit program increased almost 20% by $801,722, and that's primarily due to the change in the structure of the benefits that was done earlier this year. We had an increase of 14 people this year. which is different. We've been having a decrease over the last few years. We had 52 new applications and 741 reapplications. Something that helped us a lot this year is the governor's executive order came out prior to us starting to take any applications. So it was a much smoother year for us, a lot less confusion from the public because everyone was told up front that if they were doing this year, they didn't need to come in and they were automatically rolled over. The other big change is the number of people dropping off the program was down significantly. And that's due to last year, we delayed the report because the program was extended. I think it was into September, so my report came in October. So we captured a larger group of denials that normally would have been captured this year. And also with the governor's executive order coming out prior to taking applications, we didn't have anybody come in unless they had a decrease in income. Questions?
May I go? Is that okay, Madam Moderator? Okay. Jill Vergara, District 7. Ross, I know that this is much more than we had anticipated because we just voted on our budget, and in the budget that we approved, we put in for senior tax relief $3,834,310, and that was based on the estimate that the Board of Finance Subcommittee had made. It was actually under 500,000, but you added 500,000 into what we had lost in revenue from last year. So this is 300,000 more than anticipated. What do you attribute that to?
The only thing I can think of that caused that difference would be the revaluation causing the individual tax bills to change and go up, which had an effect on their benefit.
Okay. I have some specific questions that I wanted to walk through with the chart that you had submitted to us. One issue, and I want to thank you, Ross, because since you've become our tax assessor, you've added into this chart in a really helpful way. And it's much clearer than when I first started on the RTM, and I wanted to thank you for continuing to improve the chart because it is a really, really good way to track this. And so I saw that you added in the average benefits. That's great. And you did this last year as well. It's great to understand how many disabled homeowners are on the program too. I noticed that there are 57 disabled participants, which is only one more than last year. And I wanted to see, how do we get the word out to our disabled homeowners that we have this program? Do we work with the social services at all? Is there a way to promote this?
It goes out in the social services newsletter, and it also goes out in the First Selectwoman's newsletter.
Okay.
Throughout the application period.
Okay. In the chart, there's the second part of it, it's the schedule of application activity. So I compared this to last year's, and I think that there's an issue with the column under FY 2021. Because these figures that are listed that line up with FY 2021 are exactly the same as what was from last year's FY 20. So from my accounting, I think that whole column, it needs to be changed. And so the difference will be calculated differently also in the change from FY 21 to FY 22.
Okay, I'll double check that.
Okay. And one comment that I wanted to make, as much as you've changed the chart, and I'm really appreciative, I think that we could use more detail about the schedule of assessment ranges, because if you look at the assessment ranges, there's a really big category that goes from assessments 363,000 all the way up to 1.1 million. And I was hoping that we could parse that out a little bit and get more information about how many people are in the assessments. Maybe if you can do it by 100,000 or 150,000 in that income category. It would also be really interesting to see benefits along those breakouts of those assessment ranges. It's important to note that 75% of our applicants fall within assessment ranges of 363,000 or under. So the higher assessments are rather unusual, and I would like to know how much benefits are being attributable to those higher assessed properties.
So are you looking for the total benefits for that group or the average benefit for that group?
Either way. Average benefit would work, or I think that if we have the number of, yeah, average benefit would work.
Okay.
And that's it. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Ross.
You're welcome.
Representative Spolier.
Hi, Marcy Spolier, District 4. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Just a quick question. Do we know, did the two applicants from the deferral program that we lost, did they switch over to the credit program, or are they allowed to do that, or do we just lose those applicants in general?
They could certainly switch to a different program, but they did not. The 5 deferral people that we had did need to come in this year. We do need to have them come in and sign the deferral paper every year. We reached out to all of them and made several phone calls, and those 2 we did not get a response from.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Murray? Representative Vergara.
Representative Spoliar's question just sparked this. It's more of a statement than a question, that I just wanted to raise this issue to this body, that deferrals has been on our, we've been looking at this as something that we need to change for quite a while. And I've spoken to people who served on the RTM, Senior and Disabled Tax Relief Committee, you know, like over decades ago when the program was revised last, and they had always intended to change the deferral, the way that deferrals work, because it's really disadvantaged. There's really no reason why people would select deferral over credit. But there are some towns, some towns that do deferral, and there's more incentives to do deferral, and it's great because it's tax neutral. So when people come into the program, it's made up for in the end, because people also leave the program. So it self-sustains itself. And it's something that I really think that we should be looking into more. It's something that we could offer to our residents to help them stay in town, and in a cost neutral way.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments or questions? Representative Gerber. And then Representative Bateson.
Yeah, hi Ross. Thanks for what you presented here. Just a couple of simple questions. One is the new. I just want to make sure I understand the new participants. They did not start receiving the deferral in June. They will start next fiscal year, or does this also impact the current fiscal year at all?
No, all the applicants on this report will start getting their benefits in July with the July taxes. So those 52 new applicants will get a credit off their July tax bill.
Okay, and I can't remember the exact number, but there was a big net positive collection, percentage collection of taxes versus what had been budgeted in fiscal year 21. Was it 4 million? I can't remember the exact number to the positive of what you had originally budgeted. based on the collections through April. Am I right?
I'm not sure. That would probably be a question for Dave. I'm the assessor.
Right.
So
Right.
Dave does the collection side.
Yeah, no, so you wouldn't be aware of whether or not you're expecting offsets to this $800,000 number through higher collection rates than anticipated.
No, I wouldn't know that. And
Okay.
again, this is going to be for fiscal year 22.
Right, right. But I would assume there are projections for that at this point as well, based on the run rate. But thank you. Since you don't know, I won't push you on it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I don't want to speculate on that.
All right, thanks.
Representative Bateson?
Thank you, Ed Bateson, District 1. Ross, quick question on, I read in your packet, the Governor's Executive Order 10 for reapplication, they didn't have to prove income. Do they still have to sign a representation on the form that is their income?
No. They only have to come in every 2 years, and essentially the governor's executive order said it's just as if it wasn't your year to come in. So they're all those people are good for another 2 years, the same as that was done last year. So
Okay. How about new applicants? They had to fill out.
Population. I'm sorry?
How about new applicants? Did they have to fill out the application and provide proof of income?
Yes.
Okay. Do we expect the Executive Order 10 to stay in place? Do you have any ideas what's going on there?
Well, it's only for this year, just like Executive Order 7 will.
Okay, so it's not in effect. He would have to extend it into the next year, and he has not.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Vergara?
Yeah, Jill Vergara, District 7. Sorry, one quick question. The number of new applications seemed very low to me. It was 52, and then last year it was 235. I know that we were in a pandemic, but last year weren't we starting with COVID as well? Yes, right? That was the beginning of COVID.
Yeah.
So why is that a concern? Why were the applications so low this year?
That I don't know. We had a tremendous number of people filing for extensions last year. Just probably 1,700 pages. And this year we have 2. So it's, I don't know what's changing.
Oh, Ross, you're breaking up a little bit.
I couldn't hear you.
You were breaking up a little bit. I'm sorry.
You're muted.
I can't hear. Oh, no, she's not. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, you were breaking up a little, and that's what Jill was saying. It was hard to hear you. But...
Okay, so I don't know why we didn't get as many. Last year we did have a tremendous number of extensions. Yeah, there's only 2 at this point that that have been granted extensions.
Anything else, Representative Vergara?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Murray.
Thank you.
Next, we have, we're going to hear from Mary Hogue about the pollinator pathway resolution. Mary, are you here?
Start. Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Good.
Sorry.
Hello.
There we
Yes.
go.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was hiding.
We hear you. How are you?
Hi. I have a PowerPoint that I was going to try and share. It's mostly eye candy, so I'm just going to go right through real fast, if that's okay. Here we go. I figured out how to do this. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Are we? And there we go. Okay, so there we go. So be the change on the pollinator pathway. Happy summer solstice and pollinator week. So let me go down here. So what is the pollinator pathway? It's having people have pollinator gardens in green spaces, large and small, in your garden, in your home, and connecting these spaces so the pollinators can get to them. So you can do them in containers, you can do them in your home, you can do them in demonstration spaces, and you can do them in restoration spots. And everybody's seeing my screen, right? Yeah? I can't hear anything. Are you seeing this?
Yes, we can
Yes,
see
I'm
that.
Okay.
seeing it.
All right, sorry, you
Sorry,
weren't
I
saying
was muted.
anything. Okay, so these are the 4 main spot things on our pledge. So we're asking you to rethink your lawn, whether it's adding a little different things to your lawn, whether it's clover or other things to your lawn, or taking a little bit of your lawn and turning it into some native plants. Whether it's doing things, reducing pesticides and herbicides or fertilizer use, gardening like nature, leaving your grass clippings or leave your leaves, and providing some water feature. You'd be amazed what you'll find will come to your garden if you just add some water to your garden. If you have nothing but lawn, believe it or not, you might as well dress like this, because that's what how lawns were first made popular. It's a status symbol. It was how lawns first came about. And this lawn here is actually all clover. It's how the Vatican maintains their lawn. And in some places, they pay people to plant native plants. The largest crop in America is lawn. So these native plants all are able to survive without watering. This is our turf grass. So you can see this is why we have to water our lawns. So this is our own Aquarian Water Company tells us that in the summer months, water usage jumps by 70%. And here's why. So so what you can do is you can transform all this lawn into this native garden. My friend Melanie in Stamford dug up her lawn area and transformed it in using these native plants. And what we did at the Larson Sanctuary, this is Dirty Swamp, and this motley crew down here, along with a few other people, cut away all these brambles, and we haven't been able to plant this stuff. Oh, wait, whoa, come back here, you. But we were able to cut away the stuff so that we were able to allow the natives to come up. And then at Smith Richardson for the Connecticut Audubon, this very scary mile a minute and porcelain berry and all sorts of bittersweet, with the help of a lot of people, they were able to bring back all sorts of wonderful native plants and monarchs and all sorts of wonderful wildlife. So we also have the Oak Lawn Cemetery and Arboretum, the Fairfield Country Day School, the Greenfield Hill Congregational Church Memorial Garden, and the Connecticut Audubon John Field Sanctuary, which had the terrible mile a minute plant. So instead of pesticides and chemical fertilizers on the land, you can spray yourself. You can get tick boxes. You can plant native plants that will attract beneficial insects that will attack the insects that you don't want. So we want to get this kind of sign instead of the pesticide applicator. And if you plant the native plants, the other critters will come. And trees, I am the chair of the forestry committee, and trees are the meadows of the sky. So if you plant native plants, what we ask is that you plant things that will bloom from spring through the fall. And we have all sorts of resources for you. And again, if you have a water feature, all sorts of critters that you can't even imagine will come and entertain you. And this is the pledge that is on our website. And we ask that you endeavor to do these things. There is no right or wrong way to be on the pollinator pathway. So everyone is encouraged to be on the pollinator pathway. We encourage everyone to give it a try. And what's fun is that everybody has a different way of doing it, and everybody enjoys sharing and participating. And that is my presentation, because I wanted to give you plenty of time to, I don't know how to get out of here, ask your questions or have your comments.
Mary, this is part of the Sustainable Fairfield effort too, is that right?
Sustainable CT, and we are certified as silver. This is our 3rd year, and so we are up for recertification, or else we lose our certification. And pollinator pathway is worth 40 points, which gives us what did I say? Which gives us 10% towards silver. And this resolution gives us 5% towards silver or 10% towards bronze. So it's a pretty big percentage. So yes, it would be very helpful for the town. And Charlie Stebbins is on with us. Charlie was the reason that I was able to give you all those wonderful slides of all the things that we've done in Fairfield. He's been sort of a one-man band. He does do a lot of work in Fairfield. He does it with a lot of other people, but I want to give Charlie a big shout out because he does a lot of work in Fairfield getting all these things done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Can you hear me? Can the team hear me here?
Yep.
So
we can hear you, yes.
Well, so pollinator pathway is, it's really a mindset. It's trying to get homeowners to, think a little bit more about what they do with their lawns, what kind of chemicals they put on their lawns, what kind of, garden beds they put in. And I'm a 35-year retired banker from JP Morgan, so what the hell do I know? Except that I've always loved I've always loved fields, always loved nature in Connecticut, grew up in New Canaan. And Mary Hogue and Misty Byers and the whole team at the Connecticut Audubon was sort of my gateway into doing some pretty fantastic restorations. And I'm sorry that Smith Richardson is like 13 feet on the other side of the Sasko River, so it's actually technically Westport, but it doesn't really matter. We have so many folks from Southport who come in there, say that walking through those 38 acres really gave them such peace during COVID, which was such a terrible time. And we even broke the dog rules so that people could come in there with their dogs and on leash and off leash. So, Mary has been a leader in this whole project. And, for the town of Fairfield to embrace this, I think is a natural. I'm right next to the Fairfield Country Day, and Margot Pierce, who's the new head of the Fairfield Country Day, gave us 2 acres of what used to be a baseball field, a practice field. And we've got it filled with, milkweed and spiderwort and stinging nettle, which you'd think, oh my God, stinging nettle, but it makes a great soup. And we're working with the kids there to do little walks through, and they learn about this stuff, and it's all good. So I don't see there'd be any reason why the town of Fairfield wouldn't embrace this ethos for their own. That's my speech.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge too that the RTM has received a lot of emails in support of this item. So, are there any questions or comments from anyone about this?
Sure, I have a question.
Is that Jeff?
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Jeff Steele, District 2. So the different levels that you can achieve, silver, bronze, gold, what does that mean? I'm not familiar with the program, but what does that mean? So we could get 10 or 15 or 20% on the way to silver, and renewing that. What what do we then get? What is the outcome? So if we get a silver ranking, what is the
Yeah,
town?
I wish Mark Barnhart were still on because he's really 50% of all of sustainable CT, and he's kind of the main sort of cheerleader for this. He feels that it's a really great community and economic driver for the town. It's bragging rights. It doesn't cost the town anything. It doesn't cost the town. I guess from his perspective, it's an opportunity cost not to have it. He feels it's a big CCM broadcast when it's an award ceremony at CCM when you get it. It's a big press release kind of a thing. It's you get a lot of press about it. There's a lot of press throughout the 3 years.
Sure.
So there's a lot of coverage because we are that, and so when there's ranking best towns to live in, best towns, so forth, all that's a very important component of that.
Okay. So it's for good reasons of attracting more interest in Fairfield, either people moving in or investors or anything really to improve our sustainability ranking, our adherence to the environment and making us look
and
like
attracting businesses. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a gold ranking at all, or is there
No, and you know what? We were 164 points higher than what we needed to be just to be silver. So we were close enough, we thought, to be. We could have gone gold, honestly, if there had been a gold. We were frustrated that there isn't a gold.
Mary, let me ask you, Mary, how much further do we have to go to get to gold? Because there are some pretty big projects going on.
There is no gold. We wish there were a gold because we could be gold if there were a gold. There is no gold. Not yet.
We're as high as we can go?
Yeah, we're as high as we can go. We were 164 points over silver last time.
Mary, where do we rank among the other the other towns in the state? I mean, if we are so high, how do we rank in terms of points with other parts of the state?
We were by far the highest.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. It's very frustrating that, there isn't something higher than silver. They haven't figured out how to make it higher. I don't know when they will be, but yeah, there isn't anything higher than silver at this point.
Well, it certainly sounds like
you've got National Fish and Wildlife, and you've got the Save the Sound, and you have these very well-heeled federal as well as state agencies who are looking to make grants. And to the extent that you can bring that money, we're in the middle bring that money into Fairfield. We're in the middle of a $250,000 grant, which would be our second $250,000 grant for Smith Richardson. That was the first one. And this one would be for the Sasko Creek watershed, which is a pissant 8-mile river that sluices out into Southport Beach, but it winds up, the headwaters are at the Larson Sanctuary, believe it or not, with otters and mink and all that craziness. And yet it's a $250,000. And so the point there, sir, I can't quite see your name because it's like Town of Fairfield.
Not Town of Fairfield.
You're not Town of Fairfield, but you're not Westport. Right. Anyway, those are the kind of things that bring money and volunteers, and I think a gold is part of the town.
Okay. Just a quick follow-up, and I think in the wording we had, did we change it to RTM, or do we still have it as Town of Fairfield? So I think there was an issue of we're doing this as an RTM body, right?
Yeah, I think we changed it to RTM.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just checking. Yeah. If not, we'll make that amendment next week.
Well, if we are number one in the state, that certainly sounds like something we need to promote, even if there's not a gold or a platinum. But that, I would think that would have to be broadcast everywhere to accomplish some of the things we want to accomplish, because it's impressive if we are that high, and we should be telling everybody about it.
Well, I want to mention I was at the CCM conference, I think 2 years ago, when they awarded it to you. The CCM stands for Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, for the public who may not know. And I was pretty proud because I think you were the only silver, or
No,
one
I
of
think there
two or
were
something.
three or
Okay.
where's Bob?
It was pretty good. It should be touted more. I think that's true.
Yeah. There's more
Representative
now. There's
Collier?
more silver now, but yeah,
Oh, okay.
because it's been 3 years. And you can, when you're bronze, then you can, work your way up to silver too. So.
Okay.
Hi,
Representative Collier? Yeah.
Hi, Mark, District 4. First, I just want to thank everyone who's worked on this. Mary, really thank you for it, because not only does it give us great acknowledgement as a town as being so high up there, but it's really good for the health of our town and health of the people who live in our town. And so I'm really thankful that we have that, and I really would like to continue to expand that for the health of our residents. And given that, I know you spoke of grants, Charles, and that we can get for the town, and I didn't know if there any type of grant we can get to educate our residents on this, because I know, until this was brought to me by some of my constituents, I wasn't really aware of it as I should be. And, quite honestly, last year, a year or two ago, we planted a bunch of grass on the side of our driveway. And in retrospect, I really wish I had known about this, because I might have considered planting more of a pollinator pathway myself instead of, doing that. And so it's kind of, I didn't know, I was uneducated. And I think if we can get more people educated on this, then we can help improve our environment even further. So is there a way that we can get more grants or more knowledge? How are we going to get this knowledge out to our residents when we pass this?
Mary, you want to answer that? I'll follow on you because I have a.
Okay. Well, I was asked at the Board of Selectmen when I presented them this afternoon what we would do after we pass because they unanimously passed at 4. We will have a press release, so that will help get the word out. I will say that we can work harder, I suppose, at getting the word out. As the Forestry Committee is the lead organization for the town to get the word out about this. The trees, believe it or not, are an amazing host plant. People don't think of that as the organization for or the type of plant for pollinators, but oaks support 435 caterpillars of moths and butterflies. And so we call trees the meadows of the sky. All trees flower, and you don't think about that because they're so tall. You don't notice the flowers, or you don't notice most notice that oaks or maples or all those trees that are so tall, the shade trees. But the other organization that is sponsoring this resolution is the Sustainable Fairfield Task Force. And the one thing that is really important about that we've been talking about is Sustainable CT, and that's the organization that's doing all the documentation for that certification. And I want to point out that we're documenting all the great work that the town is doing, whether it's the staff or it's all these wonderful organizations, whether it's the Connecticut Audubon, the Aspatec Land Trust with their Green Corridor Initiative, which is like pollinator pathway on steroids because they're like really physically connecting all the pieces of property. Or it's all our 4 garden clubs, or it's all these garden centers that are working with us, or the Claiborne properties that are doing these different properties that they own. They're working with us. So we have so many different people in town that are working on this with us. And individuals at their property in residences. So there's so many different people that are working on this already that it's just really, it's hard for me to not imagine that people don't know, but obviously I have to do a better job of getting the word out. So this is one way of meeting with you to help get the word out. So
Marcy,
that.
Mary, if I could just jump in to Marcy's question. There actually is a category in the NIFWIF, National Fish and Wildlife Futures Fund, for educating, because most of the waterways that go into the Long Island Sound are polluted, right? So people are, pouring way too much fertilizer, be it nitrogen or otherwise, and it winds up creating algae blooms and all that sort of thing. So those grants don't tend to be as large as the $250,000 restoration, because obviously that's expensive stuff. But they have a category, and they really are looking for applicants, because they're kind of flush with money right now, believe it or not, and they're looking for reasonable grants, $50,000, $60,000, so that they can help educate the communities, not just in Connecticut, but also in the North Shore of New York, Long Island, and out to Rhode Island, because if the feeder rivers and streams are polluted, it winds up in Long Island Sound. And the good news is the Sound is getting cleaner every year, but we could really accelerate that if we could be a little bit more thoughtful about what we put on our lawns and how it washes in. A quick note: this $250,000 grant is called the Sasko Watershed, and actually half, or about a third, of the Sasko River runs through Westport. They worked with the Hunt Club, the Fairfield Hunt Club, to stop them from pouring all their horse manure into an unnamed tributary to the Sasko River. And instead, when they would have these great, polo matches and equestrian championships, they collected the horse manure. They took it up to Lebanon, Connecticut, which is a huge processing center, and they got paid for the manure. So they weren't putting it into the water. They were making money on the manure, and everybody was happy. And so there are those kinds of win-win situations that if you get the right people together, you can realize that benefit. But we've got Ash Creek, we have Browns Brook, which is right in my backyard. You have the Mill River. We've got a lot of really beautiful tributaries, and if you wanted to team up and put together some kind of an application for a grant, again, there won't be big, $40,000, $50,000, but we could then create some sort of literature and some sort of educational program that I'm sure NIFWIF would be delighted to fund.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Georgiades.
Hi, Drew Georgiades, District 9. Hi, Mary. How are you?
Hi.
Mary and I, how are you? Good. Mary and I have spent a lot of time talking about legal conservation voters and all sorts of conservation issues. So as a member of the RTM, I am very interested in trying to change the mindset of grass, and people think grass is the ultimate. And I was on Black Rock Turnpike today, and there are a couple businesses that are sort of neglected, and they have overgrown medians and overgrown areas. And if we could just change that grass is the best, either with, like Marcy said, on a side yard, or in a, change the way the town puts in the sidewalks so there's not that strip of grass between the curb and the sidewalks, and you have less mowing, less cost, less exhaust from the mowers, and also, less water used in getting the grasses. So I think as a municipality, if we can somehow encourage local businesses to, not perceive as, oh, well, we have to have this grassy area, and make it either a pollinator pathway or more native species. And I think as an RTM, we could really encourage some of these, and they'd save money. And it would be better just overall, especially as water becomes even more and more of a precious natural resource. So yes, I agree that we need to help our residents become more knowledgeable, but also support our small businesses in town in an effort to, again, this place on Black Rock today looks so blighted, and it was just because no one was mowing their grass, So I'd like to talk to you further about that, Mary. Maybe we can have like a two-pronged attack, sort of the commercial mindset and then the consumer mindset.
The residential mindset. Yeah, that's well said. You have to work with all the.
Consumer is residential, don't you think, Charles? Consumer is residential.
It's semantics, but I mean, you know, the property owners, basically, whether they're residential or they're commercial. I agree with you.
Thank you.
I think it's
Representative.
well, whatever.
Oh, go ahead. Did you want to say more, Jen? No.
No, I was just talking about commercials. So if Charles wants to correct me, that's fine. But I was trying to.
No, I'm not correcting you. I'm just. Mary is the one who you work with Cliben. You thought about. I mean, honestly,
I've known Mary for 30 years, so I know. So but I would like to just have that as another facet of this because I think it can really benefit our town. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. Representative Pastilli.
Thanks, Sharon Pastilli, District 3. I just wanted to say thank you, for your efforts with this, and thank you for all the efforts of Sustainable Fairfield. We actually started a pollinator pathway in our own yard, and my husband hatches monarchs and have seen like a huge increase since we started doing this. So I think if everybody pitches in, there's a tremendous amount of interest. The pandemic has made us really concentrate on our own yards and also emphasized how we're interconnected. So I think it is a really important initiative for the town and to show our town's citizens what we're, that we care. And then in terms of the importance of, why we need to be involved in this certification program, Mary, you can correct me on this, but I read somewhere and I can't find the backup for it, but Fairfield's got the most real estate at risk for sea level rising, right? So we have the most dollars of real estate at risk. So that's why it's also really important for us as a town to be the leaders in this initiative, because we do need everybody to pitch in all the ways that we can for climate. Because in the state of Connecticut, we do have the most real estate at risk. So thank you for all the efforts. And, we really appreciate your hard work on this.
It's the whole town. It's not just me. This is the pollinator pathway.
Yeah, but it's all interconnected, and it just changes our mindset, which is really important for the town and important for people moving in. I think it's been a great way for people coming into town to connect. So it's very valuable for the culture of our town.
And I just want to make clear that, the pledge is worded very specifically to say that we ask people to endeavor to try to do all of the things on the pledge, but not feel bad. It's really, you try and do something. You start where you are. You try it, and next year you try something else. And the resolution is pretty much the same thing. It's we encourage you to do whatever you can do. It's not a hard and fast, you must do something, do not do something. There is no hard and fast anything in the wording where you must do or not do anything. It's all meant to be wherever you are, that's where you start, and you continue on wherever the path takes you, not to use the path too many times, and everybody goes a different direction. And that's what I've found when we've had different groups come together. Everybody has a different interest. And so when they come together, there's such an excitement because everybody's learning and everybody's sharing. And that's what the excitement is. And that's what's built all the excitement about the whole pollinator pathway concept, is the sharing that people have when they come together.
Representative Gerber.
Yeah, just briefly, I'm glad you're doing this. I'd never heard of this before. So it's been educational for me just listening to you and reading the resolution. It was mainly educational for me. But when I was reading, I couldn't help thinking, well, so what is this actually going to get you if we approve this? And it just seems like it's like moral support, it's some PR, but you're not asking for money, you're not trying to put in any legislation or anything like that. So listening to your presentation, I was thinking, to make this more impactful, are you going to try to implement programs that actually get people, more people, wider base of people excited about it? Like, well, will you, you have a tab on the Fairfield, Town of Fairfield website. Will you actually fill out like a section of that for, how to create a pollinator pathway, from out of your yard? Or could you have could Sustainable Fairfield actually have some sort of consultancy? People are putting in a new yard, who would they call? Could someone come out, some plans? Could there be an award for, people that actually do things by the books, the way you're talking about? Can you designate a yard, a gold star, pollinator pathway yard, and give them a sign that lets them put something on their yard saying this is in accordance with,
Oh, we do have that already. Yeah, I mean, you can buy a sign.
There's a little badge you can put on your fence.
There is a sign already. There is a way to sign the pledge, and then you can buy a sign. That's part of the pledge. We need more people to help make all this stuff happen. That's part of the problem. It's really just me right now.
The reason you're doing this really is to get 40 people, many of whom never heard of this before, on board.
Yeah. So more bodies to take up all those great ideas that you have. Yeah. Then we can do all those things. Yeah.
Okay. But there is I couldn't see anything on the Sustainable Fairfield website. There's no like section to go to that I could see. Maybe your presentation needs to be something that you can click on as a permanent like link.
Well, one of the things we're working on for Sustainable Fairfield Task Force is we have created 7 subcommittees, and one of them is the natural environment. And so we are working on giving people a better understanding of Sustainable Fairfield Task Force so that you can then sign up to become part of our subcommittee groupings. And then that would be very helpful for us, because then you could help us with some things like pollinator pathway. So yes, we're working on creating that kind of pollinator. I mean that web program.
I think Mary, is it David Brandt who's at the Audubon?
He's Aspetuck Land Trust.
I think he emailed me and said that there's, if you go to their website, they have some guidance on how to create this pollinator pathway, just in response to Bill's immediate question anyway, because I was curious, how do I even start? So.
Yeah, aspetucklandtrust.org has really great stuff. Their particular initiative is called the Green Corridor, and it's really very thought out and very impressive. So you might check that out in particular. But if you go to pollinator-pathway.org, that's the Pollinator Pathway Initiative, and you can look up the Fairfield Pollinator Pathway Pledge, and you can see exactly what is specific to Fairfield there as well.
Okay. Representative Grant?
Hi there. So I appreciated the form, the handout we got out. There was lots of great information, and I like that you're telling people join where you're at. You don't have to jump all in. You can do little things. I do have one question. We do have community members that own businesses or work for businesses that do keep our lawns, looking right, or, perhaps keeping pests away. Does this impact them in any way?
Keeping what away?
So the different community, so we have businesses in town, you see them, they put signs up, they spray people's lawns, whether we like it or not. I've called a few of them, and it sounds like everyone's trying to make changes here, joining the steps, you know, where they're at. But do we hurt any of these businesses by doing this? Is there any harm being done to them is my question. They also are community members making a living.
I don't know. I guess that would be something. What did they say when you called them?
So it was months ago, and I was kind of just asking a little bit about the products they use. They themselves, the few companies I spoke to, seemed, you know, they also wanted to do right by the environment. So it seemed like they were educated and trying to move in the right direction. It seemed like they didn't, the two that I spoke to in particular, they seemed like they didn't want to overuse chemicals. You know, they mentioned the various things in our waterways. I was just wondering if you guys worked with them at all. Is there any collaboration there? Have you heard any feedback from them?
No, haven't one way or another. No.
Okay, thank you.
Representative McCormick.
Good evening, Karen McCormick, District 2. Thank you, Mary, for coming and joining us this evening and giving us your presentation. I did have a question. Your comment indicating that these would be things that residents could do to assist in cultivating the pollinator pathway, but that you know, it's not necessarily like a to-do list where everybody's got to do all of the things that are on the list. That concerns me a little bit, making a resident feel like, you know, these are things that have been recommended by, let's say, the RTM and the Forestry Committee, and that if somebody doesn't do these things or all of these things, that they would somehow, you know, not necessarily be a non-compliance situation, but certainly not be doing what everybody's asking of them. So that was an important comment that you made, that this is not a to-do list that everybody's got to accomplish all of it, but if somebody could do just something towards cultivating the pollinator pathway situation, I guess that would be something we would want to encourage. But the one question that I did have is item number 4, which was have a water feature. I know that in seasons past, we've had you know, situations with the mosquito population where different viruses were carried by the mosquitoes, and I think there were even directives, or certainly not mandates, but encouragement by the Connecticut, I'm not really sure what department it would have come out of.
Probably public health.
Public health, to
Probably.
tell people basically to not have standing water and not have water features, because that would encourage
not standing water, and we're very clear on how to have a water feature so that would not be standing water. Yeah, we're very clear on that.
When you say you're very clear on that, what do you mean? Because it's not clear on what the recommendation is on what we were given.
Okay, well, on the pollinator pathway program, on the pollinator pathway website, it specifies, you know, you want to make sure that the water is agitated in some fashion or form, so that either it's running, whether it's, you know, a fountain, or it's you have a bubbler, or you have some sort of agitator of some sort. So.
Right, because the features that you mentioned is a bird bath, and I know that those were specifically encouraged to be disposed of during a time where we've had diseases carried by mosquitoes and outbreaks and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to find out but if you're saying that the website actually calls for moving water, then that obviously negates the question that I'm asking. But
well, I guess maybe we should put the word have a moving water feature, then maybe put the word moving in there.
That would,
or fresh water. I mean, a bird bath, you know, it stagnates in a couple of days, and then it's just like replenishing your bird feeder. You know, you don't want stale thistle seed out there. You have to go in there and clean it out, or the sugar water for the hummingbirds. So we could probably be a little bit more specific on that one.
Yeah, I mean, if you change the water within within a certain period of time, it's just as
3-4
good
days,
as
that's all we're
change.
talking about.
Yeah, it's not, it's just as good as if it were moving.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
Representative Iacono.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Through to you, to Mrs. Hoag. I just wanted to follow up on Representative Grant's question. We had sent over from our caucus a series of questions through the moderator, and in it, Mrs. Hoag, you responded back that you would be happy to connect with, as an example, weedman or a greenskeeper to get feedback from them. I think that's where that question originated, and it sounds like you didn't have an opportunity to reach out to any of them. And then you mentioned that there were other local companies that are parts of groups that are advocating for this. Do you have any examples from those types of companies, such as those that I just mentioned, that are advocating for the passage of this to encourage it?
Let's see, we've worked with Oliver Nursery, we've worked with Native. Where's Charlie?
We work with Bartlett, we work with Glengate, we work with, I mean, Glengate is actually putting in an exhibition garden at the Haskins Preserve over in Westport with Land Trust and David Brandt. But we could be more, I sense that there's a concern that we're undermining some of our, good small businesses who, are a big part of the community and keeping the landscape green and healthy. So we haven't systematically gone through, but we have worked with a lot of those partners, and there's probably more to be done.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, there is concern for the small business owner. I mean, we all want to do the right thing and be good citizens and of good nature, but and it is just a resolution of encouragement, it's not binding. But I do want to just recognize that I'm not looking, or we're not looking to, make things difficult for people to do business. My other question is, there was another representative who mentioned that we would save money by not having grass. Is that correct? Why is it cheaper not to have grass in our town and spaces, and why? I understand aesthetically and with the pollinator and all of that with the plants, but how is planting plants and watering plants any cheaper than mowing and watering grass?
Well, with native plants, you don't have to water them.
Someone just extrapolate on that for me.
Well, native plants, you wouldn't have to water them. Well, you missed the presentation, but the native plants don't need the watering. So there's that, and they don't need the care. They don't need the fertilizer or the herbicides or the pesticides. So they don't need the extra inputs, and you don't have to replant them.
Since it was they don't need the mowing and all of that maintenance.
That's a big part of it. They don't have to be mowed every week. Right.
I mean, I have a beautiful right near me that I share in the district that someone took care of, and they did take out all the grass and plant shrubs and plants and such, and it's gorgeous. But there is, weeding and watering that does go on over there. So I was just curious as to, in terms of expense offsets, what that was. But
where's your district? Where are you located?
I live in District 8, so on the corner of Mill Plain, over by Mill Plain and Umpqua. They ripped out all the grass in there and plant. It's beautiful. It's really, really taken off quite nicely over the past couple of years. But they do have to come through with the water truck every now and again, and they do go in and mulch and weed, which is fine. It's beautiful.
I know in the state of North Carolina,
expense to that.
In the state of North Carolina, about 15 years ago, they took out most of the grass in the medians on highways, and they planted pollinator pathway meadows, just so that they would reduce maintenance as far as getting the state highway people out there to mow and all of that stuff. And it's much prettier than grass, and it's been an ongoing thing for over a decade. So there is data that. And I was more thinking about the cost savings to the small businesses because as an RTM, we're concerned about small businesses in this town.
Thanks. I was just looking for the dollar-to-dollar comparison, that's all.
Hello.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Sorry, that was my bad. I was on mute.
Okay.
Representative Gale.
Thank you. Well, I just want to thank you for this. It's so nice to see so many emails about something positive. So I really appreciate that. And I also am excited about the idea of people getting help from each other, because I've noticed that like sometimes there's like a regional issue in the garden, like in my area and in District 6, we have like grub infestations and there's just no coordination of what's going on. So like I will use milky spore, like a non-insecticide. My neighbor will use an insecticide, and the bugs are getting like used to both. It's not a good thing. So having, an ability to just have some sort of central place related to the town where we can share information on gardening and maybe even share, make arrangements to share plants, get someone's, stinging nettle that we could plant in our yard, things like that might be really exciting. And I also just want to say in regard to the grass, like I really love the grass around my house. We play a lot of croquet, so that's our major summer activity. But I have tons of clover in it, and so the clover makes it a very different, medium, makes it much more sustainable and much more permaculture. That was the word I was looking for. So there are ways to do it. And I do have a bird bath, and I just change the water in it every day. So
It makes a difference, right, Hannah? Makes a big difference.
it does, yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. So
Hannah,
thanks.
where's your district? What part of Fairfield?
I'm in District 6, so we kind of have a cool, we're coming up the hill to Tunxet's Hill. So we don't have fences between the houses. Right. Everybody is just, on a different terrace.
Yep.
So there's a lot of interplay between the things on our lawns and things like that.
It's a beautiful area.
Yeah.
Any other, thanks, Hannah. Any other comments before we? No. Well, thank you so much to Mary and Charlie for your presentation, and you can tell there's a lot of interest in this. So we'll be voting on it on Monday. Monday's our proper regular meeting. So.
Perfect.
And you don't need to come back unless you'd like to.
Now I'll be mowing lawns.
Okay. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Good night. So there's one more item. I just want to point out that we had a supplemental item for a FairTV appointment. That person isn't able to come tonight to meet us. So she'll be Paula Kokosa, I think her name is. So she'll come on next Monday and meet with us. So that's it for our items for the general meeting. And I just want to remind the LNA folks that we're staying on this WebEx for our meeting, and everyone else, you should have the phone numbers for your meetings. I sent them out today. So thank you, and we'll see you next Monday.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks.